A veteran, struggling to stand tall, fought through pain with every step toward Buckingham Palace, his medals gleaming with stories of courage. The Royal Guard remained rigid, watching closely until the veteran's legs finally gave out. In that moment, protocol was broken, and what followed left the entire crowd in silent reverence. Here's what happened. But before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Also, make sure to check out our second channel, Guard Patrol, linked in the pinned comments, because we upload daily at the same time on both channels. So subscribe to both and never miss a powerful story. The morning sun cast long shadows across the grounds of Buckingham Palace as Guard John Miller stood at his post, the weight of 15 years' service evident in his perfect posture. His scarlet tunic caught the early light, brass buttons gleaming like small beacons against the ceremonial uniform. Through his practiced forward gaze, Miller first noticed the elderly man making his way through the gathering crowd. There was something different about this visitor, something that caught Miller's trained eye immediately. The man moved with the unmistakable bearing of a veteran, his shoulders squared despite obvious physical difficulty. Each step seemed to cost him considerable effort, yet he maintained a dignity that spoke of years of military service. His weathered face bore the kind of quiet determination Miller had seen countless times in both training and combat, the look of someone pushing through pain with sheer force of will. As the man drew closer, Miller could see his medals clearly. Not tourist replicas, but genuine decorations that told a story of service and sacrifice. They caught the morning light with each laboured step, campaigns and honours from conflicts that had shaped the world. The veteran's hand occasionally reached for support that wasn't there, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes about his struggle between pride and necessity. Through his ceremonial stillness, Miller felt a familiar tightness in his chest. It was the same feeling he'd experienced in Afghanistan, watching fellow soldiers push themselves beyond their limits, refusing to acknowledge when they needed help. His own combat experiences, the firefights, the lost comrades, the hard-earned medals that now adorned his uniform, had taught him to recognize true courage when he saw it. The veteran's steps grew more uncertain as he approached, though his military bearing never wavered. His face showed the strain of someone fighting a private battle between dignity and physical limitation. Each step a testament to years of discipline, refusing to yield to current frailty. Other tourists had begun to notice him as well, their usual chatter dying down to respectful murmurs as they recognized something special unfolding before them. Miller maintained his forward gaze, but his awareness was entirely focused on the approaching veteran. Years of battlefield experience had taught him to read the subtle signs of someone reaching their limits, and every instinct told him this proud warrior was fighting a losing battle with his own body. "Steady on, old boy," Miller heard the veteran mutter to himself, the words carrying clearly in the morning air, "just like on parade." His steps were measured, deliberate, each one placed with the precision of someone who had marched in formation countless times before. Despite his obvious struggle, there was an unmistakable military rhythm to his movement, years of training visible in every carefully considered step. His decorations told a powerful story: campaign medals from Korea, service ribbons that spoke of decades of dedication, and, most notably, a distinguished service order that caught the sunlight with each laboured breath. The medal hung perfectly positioned on his jacket, not merely pinned there for display, but worn with the kind of precision that becomes second nature after years in uniform. "Remarkable, isn't it?" an elderly woman whispered to her companion. "You can see it in his bearing, once a soldier, always a soldier." Her words carried a deep understanding, perhaps born from her own memories of a different era. Other tourists had begun to create a respectful space around the veteran, their usual excitement replaced by quiet observation. Through his ceremonial stillness, Miller noticed how the veteran's hands would occasionally clench at his sides, fighting against the instinct to reach for support. His steps had become smaller, more careful, but his chin remained high. The same proud angle Miller had seen in countless military parades. There was something profoundly moving about this silent battle between physical limitation and ingrained military discipline. "Look at his medals, Dad!" A young boy tugged at his father's sleeve, voice hushed with instinctive respect. "He's a real hero, isn't he?" The father nodded solemnly, unconsciously straightening his own posture as the veteran passed them. The veteran's breaths had grown more laboured now, each one carefully controlled, the kind of measured breathing Miller recognised from his own combat experiences, when maintaining composure meant everything. Sweat had begun to bead on the older man's forehead, yet his uniform remained impeccable, every crease exactly where it should be, tie perfectly aligned, shoes polished to a mirror shine despite the obvious effort of his journey. "Just a few more steps," the veteran whispered to himself, words meant for no one else but carrying the weight of every battle he had ever fought. His legs trembled slightly now, but his military bearing remained unbroken, back straight, shoulders squared, eyes forward with unwavering determination. Miller could see the veteran's reflection in his polished boots. A proud warrior fighting perhaps his hardest battle yet, not against any enemy, but against time itself. Other tourists had lowered their cameras, sensing that they were witnessing something far more meaningful than a typical photo opportunity. The morning had grown warmer, but the veteran's resolve seemed to strengthen with each step, as if drawing energy from some deep well of discipline that years of service had instilled in him. The first visible sign of trouble came as the veteran drew within a few yards of Miller's post. A subtle tremor ran through the older man's frame, barely noticeable to civilian eyes, but glaringly obvious to Miller's trained observation. The veteran's right knee had begun to buckle slightly, though he fought to disguise it with the kind of determination that had likely carried him through countless battles. "Not now," the veteran murmured through gritted teeth, his voice carrying the same quiet authority it had probably used to command troops decades ago. "Stand fast, soldier!" He was speaking to himself, but Miller felt the words resonate through his own rigid posture. The morning sun caught the perspiration on the veteran's forehead, each drop a testament to his struggle. Through his ceremonial stillness, Miller could see the veteran's hands beginning to tremble, not with fear or uncertainty, but with the pure physical effort of remaining upright. Yet his military bearing remained intact, chin high, shoulders back, every movement still governed by years of ingrained discipline. It was the kind of courage Miller had witnessed in Afghanistan, the determination to keep going when every fibre of your body screamed for rest. A small crowd had gathered at a respectful distance, their usual tourist excitement replaced by concerned silence. An older couple who had been photographing the palace lowered their camera, the woman's hand moving to her heart as she watched the veteran's struggle. A former serviceman in the crowd, identifiable by his regimental tie, took an instinctive step forward before catching himself, understanding that this was a battle the veteran needed to fight on his own terms. "Just a few more steps," the veteran whispered, each word measured and precise, just like his increasingly difficult steps. His medals caught the light with each subtle sway, campaigns and honours from conflicts long past, seeming to whisper their own encouragement. The Distinguished Service Order gleamed prominently, a reminder of battles won against impossible odds. Miller maintained his forward gaze, but every sense was attuned to the unfolding situation. He could hear the veteran's carefully controlled breathing, could see the growing tension in his frame, could sense the mounting struggle between pride and physical limitation. It was like watching a mighty oak fighting against an invisible storm, bending but refusing to break. The veteran's step faltered again, more pronounced this time. His right leg nearly gave way, but through sheer force of will, he recovered, maintaining his military posture even as the cost of doing so became increasingly evident. Sweat now dampened his collar, but his tie remained perfectly straight, his jacket impeccably pressed. A warrior to the last. "Sir!" a concerned voice called from the crowd. "Perhaps you should." But the sentence died unfinished as the veteran raised one hand slightly, the gesture carrying all the authority of a field commander silencing a subordinate. His eyes remained fixed forward, focused on his self-appointed mission, with the same determination that had likely characterized his entire military career. The morning air seemed to grow thicker with tension as the veteran took another laboured step. Miller could feel the weight of the moment pressing against his ceremonial stillness, each second marked by the quiet but intense struggle playing out before him. Years of combat experience had taught him to recognize the signs of imminent collapse, and every instinct was now screaming that this proud warrior was fighting a losing battle. It happened in slow motion, the kind of moment that soldiers know can change everything. The veteran's right leg finally betrayed him, buckling under the weight of years and pride. His left knee followed, and the distinguished soldier began to fall. For a split second, the morning air seemed to freeze, holding its breath as gravity reached for a warrior who had defied it for so long. In that moment, Guard John Miller made a decision that would break 15 years of perfect protocol. His ceremonial rifle clattered against the courtyard stones as he lunged forward, moving with the same precision that had once saved lives in combat. His white-gloved hands caught the veteran mere inches from the ground, strong arms supporting the older warrior with gentle but unwavering strength. "I've got you, sir," Miller said quietly, his voice carrying the respect of one soldier to another. "The Queen's Guard stands with its own." The words came naturally, breaking years of silence at his post, but carrying the weight of every value his uniform represented. The veteran's eyes met his, recognition and understanding passing between them. The kind of silent communication that only those who have served can truly comprehend. "Thank you, son," he replied, his voice steady despite his near fall, "though I suspect this isn't quite regulation." Miller's grip remained firm but gentle as he helped the veteran regain his footing. "Some regulations, sir, exist to be honoured in their breach." His voice carried the quiet authority of someone who understood that true duty sometimes meant choosing humanity over protocol. The crowd had fallen completely silent, many wiping tears from their eyes as they witnessed this unexpected display of military brotherhood. A young mother pulled her children closer, whispering something about real heroes, while several veterans in the crowd stood straighter, understanding the deeper meaning of what they were witnessing. "Royal Marines?" Miller asked, noticing a particular campaign medal as he steadied the older man. The veteran nodded, a flicker of pride crossing his weathered features. 30 years, he confirmed, though these days the spirit seems more willing than the flesh. His attempt at humour did nothing to disguise the emotion in his voice. The complex mixture of gratitude and the particular kind of humility that comes from having to accept help. Miller adjusted his stance, providing better support while helping the veteran maintain as much dignity as possible. "Afghanistan?" the veteran asked, noting one of Miller's own medals. "3 tours," Miller replied softly, "though I suspect your chosen reservoir campaign was considerably colder." This drew a surprised chuckle from the veteran, appreciating both the recognition of his service and the subtle attempt to ease the tension of the moment. "The cold wasn't so bad," the veteran remarked, his voice growing stronger as Miller helped him find his balance. "It was the waiting that tested us. Rather like your duty here, I imagine." Their eyes met again, sharing an understanding that transcended the decades between their services. "Daniel Hayes?" the veteran introduced himself, his voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that years of command naturally instill, though most of my men called me captain. His hand, still strong despite his physical challenges, gripped Miller's arm with the firmness of someone used to greeting fellow soldiers. "Guard John Miller, sir," Miller responded, maintaining his supportive stance while adjusting to ensure the captain's comfort. "3rd Battalion, Royal Regiment, though at the moment I seem to be rather off my post." The subtle humour drew another warm chuckle from Hayes. Korea was different, Hayes said softly, his eyes taking on the distant look that Miller recognised, the gaze of someone seeing memories rather than the present moment. We didn't have these beautiful uniforms or this magnificent palace to guard, just frozen hills and the knowledge that we were all that stood between civilization and chaos. Miller nodded, understanding flowing between them. Different battlefields, same duty, sir. Whether it's a frozen hill in Korea or a post at Buckingham Palace, we stand our ground. His words carried the weight of shared experience, of battles fought across different decades but bound by the same principles. You know, Hayes continued, his breathing steadier now as he found his strength, watching you lads on duty here, it reminds me of our own stands. The stillness, the discipline, it's not just ceremony, is it? It's a testament to something deeper. His medals caught the morning light, each one telling its own story of sacrifice and service. No, sir, it's not just ceremony, Miller agreed, his voice low, but carrying clearly in the respectful silence that had fallen over the crowd. Every hour we stand here, we're not just guarding a palace, we're standing watch over traditions that countless brave men like yourself fought to preserve. Hayes's hand moved to touch his distinguished service order, a gesture that seemed almost unconscious. That night at Chosin, he said, his voice taking on a tone that Miller recognised from his own combat veterans, we held our position for 6 hours in -40 degrees. Lost some good men, but we didn't yield an inch. Sometimes I wonder if today's generation understands what that kind of stand means. They understand, sir, Miller assured him, gesturing slightly with his head toward the watching crowd. Every day I see it in their eyes. The respect, the recognition that some things are worth standing for, worth preserving. His grip remained steady, supporting not just Hayes's physical frame, but the weight of history they both carried. Different wars, same values, Hayes mused, his military bearing returning stronger with each passing moment. Tell me, son, that tour in Afghanistan, did you ever have moments where everything seemed impossible, but duty demanded you stand fast anyway? Miller's mind flashed to a particularly harrowing night in Helmand Province, where his unit had held their position against overwhelming odds. Yes, sir, more than once, but we had something you taught us long before, that it's not about the odds, it's about the stand itself. What do you say, Captain? Miller asked, his voice taking on a gentle but firm tone. Shall we show them how a proper soldier stands at attention? His supportive grip shifted slightly, ready to help Hayes achieve what his spirit clearly yearned for. One more moment of standing tall in front of Buckingham Palace. Hayes's eyes lit up with the same fire that had likely inspired his men during countless battles. Lead the way, Guard Miller, he responded, his voice stronger now, carrying the unmistakable command presence that years of service had instilled. With careful, deliberate movements, Miller began helping Hayes straighten to his full height. The veteran's body initially resisted, years of wear and injury fighting against the attempt, but his military discipline prevailed. Slowly, steadily, like a battle flag rising after a storm, Captain Hayes began to stand tall. Back straight, sir, Miller guided quietly, his support unwavering. Shoulders squared, just like you taught your own men. Each instruction was delivered with respect, one soldier to another, as Hayes found his balance and strength. Been a while since I stood properly at attention, Hayes admitted, his breath catching slightly with the effort. But his bearing, that indefinable quality that marks a true soldier, began to assert itself. His chin lifted, shoulders squared, and despite the trembling in his legs, dignity flowed back into his stance. The pain never quite goes away, Hayes said softly, meant only for Miller's ears. Not from Korea, not from the years after, but sometimes. His voice grew stronger as his posture improved. Sometimes you have to show them that a soldier never really forgets how to stand. Miller's support remained steady, but gradually lessened as Hayes found his strength. "That's it, sir, just like on the parade ground." The morning sun caught both their medals now, different campaigns, different battles, but the same unwavering spirit. Around them, the crowd had grown completely silent, many standing straight to themselves as they witnessed this powerful moment of military brotherhood. Veterans in the crowd had moved their hands to their hearts, some offering silent salutes at the sight of Hayes regaining his full military bearing. "You know what we used to tell the young ones in Korea?" Hayes asked, his voice now carrying the full authority of his rank. "That standing fast isn't about not feeling fear or pain. It's about standing anyway." His words carried across the courtyard, a lesson in courage for all who could hear. "Ready, sir?" Miller asked quietly, preparing to step back, but ready to offer support if needed. Hayes nodded, the movement sharp and precise, every inch the officer he had been, and in this moment still was. As Miller began to withdraw his support, Hayes remained upright, standing tall through sheer force of will and decades of discipline. For a moment the years seemed to fall away from him, not in any physical sense, but in the power of his presence, the strength of his bearing. Together they stood, two soldiers from different eras, united by the timeless values of service and sacrifice. The older warrior and the younger guard, each supporting the other in their own way, demonstrating that true strength often shows itself most clearly in moments of shared vulnerability and mutual respect. Captain Hayes held his stance for several more moments, his dignity fully restored, before giving Miller a slight nod. "I think that will do, Guard Miller," he said, his voice carrying both gratitude and pride. "Best to get you back to your post before we cause an international incident." Miller supported Hayes as he carefully eased back into a more comfortable stance, the movement executed with the same precision as their earlier collaboration. "The honour was mine, sir," Miller responded quietly. "Some posts are worth leaving to help a fellow soldier stand tall." Before Miller could step away, Hayes reached into his pocket and withdrew something that caught the morning light. A medal, small but significant. "This was awarded for valour at Chosin," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind his words. "Been carrying it with me for years, wondering who might understand its true worth." With careful movements, he pressed the medal into Miller's white-gloved hand. "I think you've earned this, son, not for helping an old soldier keep his dignity, though I thank you for that, but for showing me that the values we fought for still stand strong." Miller's fingers closed around the medal, understanding the profound honour being bestowed. "Sir, No need for words, lad," Hayes interrupted gently. "Just remember, every time you stand at your post, you're not standing alone. You're standing with every soldier who ever held the line, from Korea to Afghanistan and beyond." Hayes straightened one final time, summoning his strength for a farewell gesture that mattered more than any words. His hand rose in a crisp salute, not the casual gesture of a tourist, but the sharp, precise movement of a combat veteran honouring a fellow soldier. Miller returned the salute with equal precision, the morning sun catching both their medals, past and present united in mutual respect. No words were needed as Hayes turned and began making his way back through the crowd, his steps still measured, but somehow lighter, as if some invisible burden had been lifted. As Miller resumed his post, retrieving his ceremonial rifle with practiced ease, he felt the weight of Hayes's medal in his pocket, not a burden, but a reminder that true service sometimes means knowing when to break ranks for the right reasons. What moves you more? Standing rigid in protocol, or knowing when to break ranks for something greater? If this story touched your heart, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about the Royal Guards, who stand as living symbols of both tradition and compassion. Don't forget to hit that bell icon to ensure you never miss our future uploads. Check out our other stories appearing on your screen right now to discover more moments where honour meets humanity and tradition meets understanding. Until next time, remember that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in standing alone, but in helping others stand tall.